and welcome to Autocar Professional. We are at the SIAM annual convention, and it's always a pleasure to interact with Mr. Nal, who's, the automotive industry right now is going through such a churn. There are like burning questions like GST, how will the industry shape up? So we thought of catching up with you to understand your perspective and obviously Mahindra's perspective on how you think the industry is going to shape up in the future. Let's get right into it from, right ahead. In terms of how do you think GST is going to impact the industry? You've already announced price cuts, not from 22nd September. In fact, right now, if customers want to sort of buy it. So how do you sort of see the impact in this year, if you could start with
Yeah.
that?
So, Prerna, thanks for the opportunity. So, for us, GST 2.0 is a very welcome step. Not just for the auto industry, but across the economy, if you look at it. It's aimed at driving consumer consumption to that extent. And so, it's aimed at giving benefit to the customer. And so, when we looked at it and we saw the kind of benefit the customer is getting just before festive, we said, why don't we extend it and, in some ways advance the festive mood. And that's how we launched the whole GST's equivalent scheme, if you want to call it, from 6th September as well. So a customer doesn't have to wait till 22nd September to get the benefit. They walk in and they get the same benefit today as well. And that's created quite a bit of excitement. But I think overall it's a step in the right direction. Mid to long term, it should be a very positive driver for growth for the industry overall.
Yeah, so you're already seeing a ramp up in terms of bookings and demands. What is the kind of mood like?
Yeah, so very early to talk about bookings at this point, but definitely from an excitement perspective, inquiries and walk-ins, we are starting to see that, and so that's quite encouraging.
Right. So before the GST overhaul and the GST 2.0 as we call it, we were seeing kind of a lull period in terms of demand, and even last year the festive season was kind of underwhelming. So right now, do you see that different segments and people coming to different kinds of demand scenario changing in that way, and how would you sort of see the market shape up in that sense?
Yeah. So the GST cuts which have happened is across the board, right? If you have a larger vehicle, which is almost 60% of our portfolio, you go from like a 48% down to 40%. You look at the smaller vehicles, you go from a 28 or 31% to 18%. So the benefit is across the board. And so we expect the customer demand to be equally spread across both of this portfolio to that extent, right? And so we are hopeful that it will help the industry, like you said, fairly muted growth so far. While we have seen significant growth thanks to the portfolio that we have, for the industry, definitely this should give us impetus.
Right. From a dealer perspective, there's an issue of inventory build-up, and even industry is grappling with it. This might make it worse for them in terms of compensation cess issue that has not been clarified. So do you see that in the Mahindra dealer fraternity as well?
Yeah, it's an area which is of concern across the industry, which is the reason why both SIAM and FADA both have made representations to the government, and I understand the government is looking at it. So our view is that we should help the dealer in whatever way we can to get the inventories down before 22nd. One of the things we had done was, even in the late part of August when this news came out, we were very prudent in kind of taking down the shipments we made to the dealership to keep the pressure down. And of course, with the schemes that we put out right now, the GST equivalent schemes, that should help the dealers also to get some of the inventories out.
Right. So that was done to sort of keep in mind the dealer sentiment as well.
Yeah.
Sure. So do you think your product planning will sort of have an impact with the GST, and how do you sort of, in the long term, in say 2 to 3 years, how will the product planning part of it change?
Yeah, so that's a very good question actually. So we're starting to think through what this means. If you see our products, some of the top-end variants of our products get benefit from 1.4 lakhs to 1.57 lakhs, right? Which is significant.
Yeah.
Now, does it mean that you'll get more folks buying the higher variants? Do you see more folks starting to buy mid variants? We'll have to see how that plays out. But it's an interesting situation for product planners, a dream to see, because suddenly all the you opened up everything and you want to see how the consumers are going to behave. So interesting question. Like you said, it's a mid to long term question to solve for, and the teams are it.
Right. And also, is there a case for like smaller hybrids now? Because hybrids as such, because most hybrids that exist are in the more than 4 meter category. So now, is there a case for smaller hybrids? New, like you said, that thinking through again, going into the drawing board, and how exciting is it right now for an automaker?
It's quite exciting. I think in the smaller vehicle space, the CNG is what people look at as a fuel efficient option. Will smaller hybrids work? We'll have to see. The price differential is still quite significant when you want to put up a hybrid powertrain in there. And as you know, it's a customer choice between diesel, which is fuel efficient, hybrid, which is fuel efficient, CNG, which is cost efficient and fuel efficient to some extent. So it's a choice for the customer. So we'll see how it plays out. But I do see that you'll continue to see significant part of the demand coming from CNG, from diesel, which is also fuel efficient to that extent, and we'll have to see if small hybrids play out as well.
So no clarity on how the powertrain mix of the country is going to play out.
Yeah, it's going to take
point.
some time for this to play out.
Yeah, and your EV portfolio again, you've been able to gain market share in an industry, and globally we've seen like EV growth being muted, not growing as fast as one was expecting. Even in India, that's sort of trickling down. So, what are your projections for the EV sector? Because GST, although it's kept it same, there was in some sectors there was an expectation that 5% could go up at some point.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened, which was a relief for EV buyers and automakers. So how do you see the EV sector developing vis-a-vis other technologies?
Yeah, so firstly, we're very thankful to the government for keeping the 5% at the same level on GST, and I think it reiterates the commitment from the government onto the EV sector. For us, we believe that India is still very much in a category creation mode in the EV space. Our penetrations are relatively low, although we have crossed 5% last month, so which is a very welcome step, but we're still in early stages to that extent, right? So I wouldn't compare our growth trajectory to the rest of the world at this point in time. And our fundamental portfolio approach has always been to create products which are exciting to customers, and not necessarily something which is just purely based on TCO. Yes, you get the benefit of TCO, but it's a vehicle you would love to buy when you fall in love with.
Buyer.
Exactly, right? So that's the genesis and the hypothesis with which we have created both the products. And we'll continue down the path for the rest of the year. We have more launches coming up at the late part of the year as well, fiscal year. But with the existing products, it's a very strong traction. We are already number one in the market in terms of revenue market share.
Correct.
And we'll continue to bet on the same hypothesis of creating exciting vehicles which gets the customers to fall in love.
Yeah, the wow products as you call them. So any, recalibration in terms of EVs, in terms of the overall industry projections, if you would want to state?
No recalibration at this point in time. Beginning of the year, we took a fairly aggressive target, which is mid to high teens growth, in the backdrop of what an industry would be like 2 to 4% growth to that extent as well. So we delivered in the last 5 months, I think 19 to 20% volume growth. So we still have to deliver the rest of the mid to high teens growth as well. So the GST would definitely help us get there.
But your category of products, the aspirational buyers, is there like a real world impact on that? Because the impetus that we've got, it's not that much, like for that category of buyers. So how do you see that translation in terms of more different kinds of customers coming into your fold?
Yeah, like I said, 60% of the portfolio are larger vehicles. But at the end of the day, Indian consumer, however, in some ways, they buy the higher vehicles or larger vehicles to that extent, they're still value conscious at the end of the day.
Correct.
So if they get a product which is cheaper, presumably you should think that you'll have higher demand coming up as well. So we believe that the impact would be positive on both sides of the spectrum.
Right. Now leave us with the world is changing. Every country is sort of becoming protectionist in their own way. India has, especially for the luxury segment, traditionally been a protectionist kind of a move. So with tariffs coming into play, with a lot of geopolitical rejig happening, how do you see your export potential? How do you see the trade ties shaping up the industry and business for you going forward? Say again, if you can take like a 2 to 3 year view, because it's too immediate to have an impact
absolutely.
now.
I think it's hard to comment on tariffs in the short term because it's a highly geopolitical situation and very dynamic to that extent. But long term, we are very clear that international expansion is a core part of our strategy as well. And we have done well in South Africa, we have done well in Australia. UK is on the horizon for us, 18 to 24 month timeline is what we are thinking. So the UK FTA has come well in time. It's a huge positive step for the Indian industry overall.
Yeah.
And so that should help us in the UK expansion that we're planning. And beyond that, I think there's a few more FTAs the government is talking of as well. So we are quite excited about it.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your views on the industry. Always very helpful and very insightful.
Thank you, Prerna.